started building AI systems when with the traditional AI applications like predictive modeling and forecasting, just in my way of wanting to always be in the cutting edge, I followed that path into building AI systems. And while building AI systems, I had my first interaction with bias in AI systems. I'm like, okay, there's an opportunity here on responsible AI and governance, and that's when you go and study a PhD, you're now saying failure software factors for software. So you've gone really narrower, and then you realize that at the end of studying a PhD, the only thing that you can you can say, I really, really know, is that tiny, tiny little bit that you studied. And then that humbles when you go on.
Yeah, that was an awesome conversation with Dr. Isi. Wow. So what did you like about it?
Personally, I loved the care she's taking with her startup, with trying to build AI companies that have the proper rules, regulations, safeguards, security built on there. Just based on her own experience from using AI, she's really doing her part to make a much needed change in the AI world.
Yeah, absolutely. I liked her comment about, governance is for AI is going at about 10 miles an hour and innovation is at 150 miles an hour. And there really has to be a lot more catching up to be done basically on that whole governance side.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Really also caught us off guard, both of us, about the small talk coming from another country that
yes. Yeah. I mean, it was it. And, she's very, it was a fascinating discussion, right? She's a PhD and is also in law school, right? Has written a book, really, really an amazing story. So I think everybody's going to love to hear this one.
Yeah, she's very intelligent. Really appreciate you taking the time to join us on the podcast. I'm curious. I just really want to start out with kind of a little bit about you, who you are, your background, how you kind of got to where you are today. Kind of take us on that journey.
Yeah, it's an interesting journey. I was born and raised in Nigeria. It's a country in West Africa. And when I went to college, there were not a lot of girls in the engineering space, but I wanted to be different. I've always wanted to stand out and do something different. And so I studied computer engineering, and I always call myself an engineer by chance, because at the time, it wasn't like I knew what computer engineering was. It was brand new. I wanted to stay on the cutting edge, and I was like, let's do it. And that's how I went for it. And since then, that has been my path. I've always been in technology. I did a master's in technology management, and I went ahead and did my PhD in innovation management. And then that led me to the US, where I am now. In the last 8 years, I kicked off my career here in the US at Accenture, where I was working in cloud and data migration, app modernization, enterprise-wide architecting. And gradually from cloud I started building AI systems when with the traditional AI applications like predictive modeling and forecasting, just in my way of wanting to always be in the cutting edge. I followed that path into building AI systems. And while building AI systems, I had my first interaction with bias in AI systems. I'm like, okay, there's an opportunity here on responsible AI and governance, and that's the space I'm in right now.
Awesome, that's great to hear. So I'm curious, what time frame was it when you started getting into the computer engineering?
You're trying to date me now. That was in the early 2000, 2001.
Awesome.
Yes.
I was curious, as I was I was a 90s kid, so I grew up with the big PCs. I loved to mess around with them and remember the old dial-up internet had to work with. So I was just kind of curious when you jumped in and started doing computer engineering, what has really blown your mind from when you started in computer engineering, kind of seeing how things have evolved to today?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the way I studied computer engineering, there was one computer in the class, and 150 of us had to share that one computer. No, it wasn't a class, it was in a computer lab. You had to take a walk, maybe 20, 25 minutes to the computer lab, and it was one computer. And you would write your piece of code in a floppy disk. And then when it was your turn to execute your code, you put your floppy disk in the computer, and then it would compile your code and see how many errors you got. And I think that developed me into being a very smooth coder right now, because you don't want to do that back and forth, go and make corrections and then come back.
Yeah.
So that you want to minimize the error as much as possible up front. Now, if you take that experience to right now, where you literally write to an LLM, a foundation model, and develop a code for me to do that. And I usually put it, minimize, no errors, make it production ready. So I still take that mindset and I give my commands to the like no errors, production ready code. But it's fascinating how now with just a few English language commands, you're able to build a whole application.
Definitely, definitely. Is there what's the thing you're the most proud of, either coding or building? Is there a specific app or software that you developed that you're really proud of?
Yeah, I've built a lot. As you can imagine, as a consultant, I've moved around quite a bit from different client to client. Some of them I'm not able to name names, but I would just say there was this project I worked on. It was a banking software. We did a huge, huge data migration. And I remember my leadership at the time saying, we don't want to be in the news as we go to production. So that was a lot of pressure, intensity, and we delivered that. It wasn't in the news. So that is something I'm proud of career-wise.
Yeah, so I think your background is really interesting. What is different between the technology environment in your old country to where you are now?
So right now, I think technology has really been democratized. LLM is available worldwide. As long as you can have, I would say, access to electricity might be like the biggest differentiator, not the technology itself, because technology is now, is what is on the internet. If you can access the internet, you can access it. I've seen quite very impressive startups come out of Nigeria, in fintech space with a lot of Silicon Valley VCs heavily backed, because of just the sheer volume of transactions that take place with Africans here in diaspora and back home. It's a huge, huge space. So I do think that we have a lot of bright minds working on different technologies in Nigeria.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've heard people say that Africa is going to be the new India
Yeah.
from a technology standpoint. Like when I was back in Accenture, I left in the early 2000s. We had just started to do a lot of outsourcing, basically
Mm.
the last 10 years, from 1996 to 2006. And I had done one of the first projects where we had brought a bunch of Indian nationals over to the United States to augment a large software development program that I was running. It was an awesome experience. We were very successful. The guys that they had brought were really, cream of the crop. They were excellent technologists. And I'm starting to hear those stories now. And I know, Africa's a huge place,
Yeah.
right? So there's, it's very hard to say, oh, Africa, but but there are certain pockets of really excellent technologists that I think are going to rival, Asia from a technology perspective. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, rival is a big word. I do know that there's technology hubs in Kenya, in Nigeria. In Nigeria, we have the technology village. In fact, I'll say 10 years ago, Mark Zuckerberg was in the technology village. That's Facebook, was in just because of just the skill sets that he's found there. We do have Meta offices in Lagos, in Nigeria. We have Google. I know that the former owner of Twitter was in Nigeria as well. So there's a lot of influx of CEOs looking there for reliable talent. And I do think that the advantage, when you're talking of rivalry, I think that the advantage that Nigerian tech talents will have over India is just that English is our first language in Nigeria. So there's just a little bit of advantage from a communication perspective. I would say, and we're milking it back home.
Yeah, very, very good. That's an interesting perspective. And you have moved into, you were a leader at Accenture and were leading in a significant technology project. And so tell me about that experience of leading a technology project when you're not, from this country.
Wow. Yeah, that is great. I mean, Accenture's was such an awesome place to work for and to lead because he didn't care where you came from. Like you said, you had folks coming in from India. It didn't really matter. Nobody talked about it. As long as you could understand it, the North Star, that's why in architecture, like, what's the North Star? What
Yeah.
is that end point?
Yeah.
If you understood the North Star, you could define that clearly and you could lead the team to deliver that North Star. That was all that mattered. So my experience has been really favorable living here in the US, even here on my current role at HCLTech, where I'm leading delivery on responsible AI and governance, red teaming and all of this capability. It's been
Have you developed a leadership philosophy?
yeah, I think I need to take a breath on this one. The philosophy. I would say for my team, I very quickly identify who is good at what. Very quickly, very early on, and then allow them thrive in those areas and use that as a learning opportunity. So I know that I don't know it all. So, right, I don't know it all. And then once I let them thrive in those areas, I use that as a learning opportunity to learn from them. And at the end of the day, we deliver value for our clients. There's something that I learned a couple of years ago that when you study a PhD, so you go for your bachelor's, right? And you learn computer engineering, you learn all of this stuff, hardware, software, middleware. You even do like other engineering. We did hydrodynamics, you did some electric circuit. You go really broad. Now, when you go for a master's degree, you pick software, right? So you cut off all of that and you pick software and then it narrows down. When you go and study a PhD, you're now saying failure software factors for software. So you've gone really narrower. And then you realize that at the end of studying a PhD, the only thing that you can you can say, I really, really know, is that tiny, tiny little bit that you studied. And then that humbles you to realize that you don't know much. You actually don't know much. So I bring that philosophy into my projects and she's like, I don't know much. I know very tiny little bit. And then I pick on the strength of the team members to deliver the overall value.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story. And how do you balance technical expertise with the people, with the people management aspects of it? Because as you know, people can sometimes be the hardest part of technology.
Yes, I think as a technologist, really trained on the tech, on the code, on the engineering, just deliver. But as you go up the ranks, to your point, it's more than just the technology. It's about the people culture, people management. So I would say that's not something that came to me naturally. I had to learn that, hang on, there's also another side of it, what we call the soft side of it. So I've had to personally develop in that area by taking courses, going for classes, management trainings, leadership building, especially in America. And I must tell you here, America is very big on small talk. It's amazing how small talk can transform the dynamics of a team. That's something that no other country does as well as the US. Uh,
Really? Really? Tell me more about that. I've never heard of that. I
you
guess,
never, you never
yeah.
heard of that.
Well, yeah.
So when you meet a team, so you get on a call and then people talking about their dogs, about the weather, about their weekend and how they went on a show. And initially I was like, why do you like let's just get on with it. But I've learned that and this is something I really learned at Accenture firsthand. It sets the tone for a more relaxed environment, a more personal environment. And people wouldn't follow you if they don't trust you. And how do you build that trust? And that's something that this small talk from the small talks, if someone is going through a challenge, you can understand their mood changes and go into that more personal level. But comparing it to other countries, like even if you go on social media, everyone says the same thing. You have people from Asia, like Americans, you are really good at the small talk. It's a compliment. It's an absolute
Mm.
compliment. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Is that surprising to you?
Well, yeah, I had never heard that. I guess,
Right?
well, I mean, because I've worked here. I mean, I've traveled, right? I've traveled for work, but yeah, I've just assumed that that's the way it
It's
always
natural.
is.
Yeah.
That's natural. And it's interesting that you found that aspect was different. And talk to me more about trust and building trust with your team.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this one delivery, I was a delivery lead and we had someone that was directly like the assistant delivery lead. And I realized that there was almost a little bit of conflict between us because he was just almost up my level. So we were like, who's gonna follow who? And that was a sort of a conflicting situation. What I said, 'cause instead of fighting him, because first of all, technology is a heavily male denominated field. So I'm dealing with that as well because even the rest of the team is 98% male. So I'm already at a disadvantage. In order to lead, I needed to bring him close. As I set up a call, just one on one, getting to know him, and I'm telling you about my experience. I was born in Nigeria, just sharing what I'm sharing here, how my coding, learning how to code was a completely different experience from most people at the company at the time. I think just sharing, being vulnerable to him, opened up that trust, that channel for us to trust each other. And he also shared his own couple of life experiences. And the project was successful because both of us trusted each other. It was like, okay, we have the same goal, we're heading towards the same direction. So I think that leaders showing vulnerability to their team is an essential part for growth and success.
Yeah, that's a key point because when you're vulnerable, you're making yourself open, right, to new conversations. And you're saying, hey, I might not have all the answers, right? And that stimulates discussion, right? And discussion leads to better solutions,
Hmm.
right? So when you're vulnerable, you create that space for more open conversation
Conversation.
amongst the whole team. And it sounds like you developed that ability to small talk.
I did. Thanks to America. Like I remember recruiting when I just got into the US. Apply for jobs, and then a recruiter calls you up, and the first thing the recruiter is talking about is the small talk. Oh, the Bulldogs and Alabama and Georgia, the game over the weekend always starts with the football, and to take the first 5 minutes, to chat about. I was confused. I'm like, what's going on here? But it's an amazing culture. I do encourage everyone to, just embrace it. Embrace it. It's worked for me, and now, yeah, I do the small talk very well.
Yeah, very good. And you now have started your own AI company. That's correct, because you were sharing a little bit about that when we talked last time. I thought that was fascinating.
Correct.
What are you doing there?
Yeah, very excited to talk about FirstScan AI. Like I said, I started developing AI systems, and while developing, I experienced bias in the system. I'm going to share the bias that I experienced. So I built a chatbot. It was a customer facing chatbot. Each time I typed in text to the chatbot, it would respond. And each time I spoke to the chatbot, it would say, "I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're saying." And from my understanding, I speak English. And from my understanding, the chatbot I built is supposed to be able to understand English. So I'm like, there's a disconnect. How can we solve for this problem? And I put in my consulting hat, because as a consultant, you identify the problem, but you don't dwell on it. You solution it and solve for it. So that's what we're doing at FirstScan AI, to add that compliance layer on AI generated visuals. And these visuals to minimize the bias in AI generated visuals. So a couple of things that we look out for when we see an AI generated image. We're looking at skin tone, facial features, eye, teeth. We're looking at body type, and also not just those hard metrics, but the soft side of it. So things like emotional expression, social behavior, on those AI generated images.
That's very interesting. I personally am very passionate about AI. Bob knows this. We talk a lot. That is a big issue, especially with the training a lot of the models. You can go Google search and see a lot of the models that were published that either came across as racist or were doing certain things because of the training that was in them. So it's very neat to see that you notice those kind of things and you're working to get that fixed. I want to dig back real quick. When did you first take an interest in AI and LLMs? Was that kind of back when you first started getting into computer engineering? When did you notice AI was going to be something big and wanted to take advantage of it?
I would say in 2020, just before COVID hit, I was like, okay, I got to go to school for this. So I enrolled at a program at Emory University where I studied machine learning and data science. So at the time, there was no Gen AI. So this was before Gen AI. I learned how to build predictive models using logistic regression and some forecasting models. So that was where my love for AI started. And then I was able to take my learning and apply it to clients at Accenture, helping them, making for clients housing forecast. That's something I worked on, was very interesting. Financial services, creating a predictive model on loan applications and things like that. So that was how I got into the traditional AI development and modeling. And then, so that was 2020. 2023, there was now this whole buzz of generative AI and then ChatGPT. And like, you should know me by now, I'm always going to follow that trend. Like, I'm not staying behind. And I was like, okay, what is this Gen AI, generative AI? And then I started playing around with it, building on top of it. And our new startup, Scan AI, where I stay as the CTO and co-founder, is built on LLM. So we have a couple of AI agents running behind the scene. So you upload your your original image, and then you upload the AI generated image of yourself. So imagine platforms that are now generating headshots, now headshots for people, right? You don't want to go, nobody wants to be a photographer anymore. You turn to AI systems. So we have those two images. You put them for an assessment, and the assessment behind the scenes, we have AI agents running. An AI agent is doing the extraction of the features, all of the features in the image, then passes it on to another assessment agent where we have written specific logic, so methodology for assigning weights to all of those features that have been extracted. So that's another agent doing the assessment. Then we have a third agent that is now doing the reporting. We're now reporting a score, a bias score, 5 over 10, 9 over 10. So we have that, and also a compliance, based on the score, how compliant are you with the EU AI Act, for example, how compliant are you with NIST RMF? These are global standards and benchmarks. So all of this is LLMs running behind the scenes.
That's great. Great. So that's been about 5 to 6 years now when you first got into AI and LLMs. And
Yeah.
I'm sure it's just been tremendous how fast things are developing. My new favorite tool is Sora, getting to go on there and create these videos that look super real. And you couldn't do that a year or 2 years ago. So with you being kind of knee deep in the AI space, what potential discrepancies or security issues do you see with how fast things are evolving? We're essentially in this AI race to get to AGI quickly between the United States and China. There's been lots of talk of not having the right security protocols being built on the back end. What are some of those things that you have noticed or potentially are concerned about as we continue to race towards AGI?
So, the governance of these tools is moving at 10 miles an hour, but the innovation is moving at 150 miles an hour. That is a challenge, and there's no uniformity or agreement on, okay, we need to govern. You would see that the EU is doing their own thing, the US is flipping based on who is the administration has different views on should we govern, should we not govern, and then there's China doing their own thing. And so I think that the fact that we're not all in agreement that there's need for governance is part of the challenges, and is what is making that governing layer run so slow. Want me to share some more on that?
No, that's
Those are-
perfectly great. I'm curious how, with you building your own company, it sounds like those are things you take very seriously, and you're ensuring to build in yourself to ensure you do hit compliance, have the security put on the back end, etc.
That's correct. We are ensuring all of those layers are put in place in our own AI product, and we're helping other companies also include this compliance layer as well. So, we do see that in Europe. So Europe was the first country to enact a law. So that's the EU AI Act. And in that act, there's classification of AI systems into prohibited systems. So some of the prohibited systems, by law, you cannot use AI systems for policing, for social scoring. So the EU has marked that as prohibited risk. Then they've classified other systems into high risk. So systems like hiring, human resource systems are in that high risk area. And then there's medium and low risk systems. And they've also put in fines, instead of 5 million euros fine or 7% of your annual revenue. Those are fines that have been put in place in Europe. So Europe is taking this governance very seriously. Here in the US, we say that there's a bit of catch up to do on the governance side. We've just passed the Colorado AI Act. So that's something I'm very, very excited for. And that act is really focused on, amongst other things, is on discrimination of AI systems. And there are penalties in place and procedures for reporting. So which is good. I do see that just recently a young boy took his life, and it was shown that he was chatting with ChatGPT, and ChatGPT actually encouraged. So It's an allegation, it's still in court, so I cannot say it's definitive, but that is still a court case that is ongoing. But within the last 5 days, ChatGPT has come out to say ChatGPT will no longer be giving legal advice and health advice. So which is good progress. It's great that the developers of the systems are beginning to think through some of the unintended outcomes of AI.
Right. Bob, you look
Yeah,
like you have a
that's
question on that.
well, yeah, it's funny. I was going to ask you, and I think you answered this question already, but I was going to ask you, what is the biggest error or mistake that you've seen AI make?
I didn't expect, quite honestly, I didn't expect that someone would take their life by chatting. But it just shows that there's so many things that we're not even thinking of that is yet to come. My biggest worry before this happened of AI on the military using AI as an autonomous agent to take down people. So that was my biggest fear, and that hasn't even happened. So it probably shows that maybe we've been looking at the wrong things. The emotional connection of humans to AI is looking like where the biggest threat is.
Yeah, I know, and just in my small use of AI using ChatGPT and Claude and various tools, you do have to do a lot of proofreading. You cannot let anything go out that hasn't been, every line has to be read. And I do have a funny example. So I was doing a presentation to a client, and I did the presentation in AI. I used Gamma to develop the powerful PowerPoint presentation kind of thing.
Yeah.
I proofread every single line, but I did not look at the images. And I get to this one page, and I didn't even notice it. but this guy says, "Hey Bob, I'm kind of getting uncomfortable with your presentation." Like, why? Because that woman has 3 arms, and the AI she was like pointing at a blackboard with three, it just was it was something that I didn't think I needed to really look at all the images, but now every single time I look at every image and facial features now and how many fingers they have, I do see that message, a lot, right? Like literally I've counted up to like 8 fingers on an image before, right? And you have to take into account a lot of different things that we didn't used to take into account.
Yeah. I mean, that's interesting. I've never seen less or more hands and fingers. So that's something I'll definitely be paying attention to.
Well, yeah, and I just didn't look at the pictures that closely, and they all thought it was funny, right? But it was, I now learned my lesson. And
so like Gen AI has a hallucination is something that is just part of the package. It's going outside of normalcy to generate things that doesn't exist or things that were not fed to it. So there's that extra need to red team. So red team is one of the strategies Tyler speaking about safety. Safety now with Gen AI systems is not just access like it used to be in traditional software. There's obviously access, there's malware detection, there's all of that safety stuff or security, but there's also the soft side. So you're checking for things like bias, you're checking for the soundness of the output. So that's the accuracy of the output. So to make sure there's no hallucination, you're looking at copyright laws as well. And now there are tools in the market that you can use to check if your AI system is generating copyrighted information. So it's really, really important that people red team their systems. Of course, their AI systems are built on AI models, but red team to make sure that there are no unintended outcomes. Yeah.
Dr. Isi, could you share some of your favorite AI tools to utilize? We know some of the big names. Are there any kind of hidden gems that you have played around with and enjoy?
So I do. Claude is my favorite. Disclaimer: I'm not marketing for Anthropic, but it is my favorite. I feel like I can do my marketing, research. On top of that, I'm currently in law school. I know I am studying intellectual property law at University of New Hampshire, Franklin Pierce Law School. And it's interesting that we were given access to Bloomberg Law, to check cases and all of that. Bloomberg Law has its own AI chatbot. So you log in, and then the chatbot has been my greatest law teacher. And I've tried to red team it as well. I've tried to ask it questions outside of law to see how it's going to respond. But the back end, they've done a pretty decent job in locking it in, so it's not responding. So it's a system we call RAG, so an augmented methodology that locks in the system, so it only responds to the data provided. It cannot go outside of that. So sort of a guardrail, but it's been very helpful because I can put in a case. Remember, I'm a technologist. I'm not ready to read 300 pages of one law case. No, but I'm able to ask it to give me the highlights of the cases and ask it what other cases and case numbers closely align, so I can do my comparisons and readings. So I found that to be one of my favorite tools.
Definitely. That's a great use case. I try to teach my kids the same thing, utilize it as an assistant for you for your school. Help it teach you things. If you've got questions, dig deeper into it. Let it be that tutor, more or less. It's great for that. So many IT certifications, and I used ChatGPT a lot just to build out questionnaires for me. And just, if I was struggling with a certain method or anything like that, I could just ask it to help teach me, what I was missing. So yeah, I can relate to that very well. So, Dr. Isi, we've already discussed a little bit about how AI is advancing very quickly. I would love to get kind of some hot takes from you of where you see AI in the next 3 to 5 years, whether it's positive, negative, any type of use cases you can imagine that's not seen today. What are a few things that you would predict AI for the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, so I'm just going to narrow down on one sector, and that's education. I do think that the education sector needs to revamp what education is. Because with introduction of AI, all of the students are using it. You're not going to be able to stop students from using generative AI for their courses and coursework. So we need to begin to rethink. And we've done this before. When the calculators came on board, there were people who thought that calculators were going to stop people from learning mathematics, but it didn't do that. And we reinvented what mathematics should look like. So I think we need to do the same. And I read somewhere that a teacher should say, okay, this is the essay, this is the assignment, go and use your favorite AI tool, come back with it. When you bring your essay, teaching should now look like critique the essay, right? How would you have written it differently? What are the verbs? What are the nouns in that essay? That is what learning, I believe, would evolve to with the use of AI.
Do you think we get to that point soon where the teacher is building out their lesson plans and grading with AI, and then they're letting the students do the work with AI? So it's basically AI on both sides giving the work.
I do think that in the next 1-2 years, AI will be doing all of that, and the real learning will be more on the soft side, interacting with the teacher, coming up and making a presentation about the AI generated. So that is now your teaching presentation, communication, and those are the things that AI cannot do. How do you prepare a sales pitch about something that's already been generated by AI? So the learning is not in the generation, but the learning will be in the communication, in the body language, in being able to pass the message across. And that's where learning is evolving to, those softer side of learning.
Do you think that the way AI is evolving, it is going to change the way education works more so at the college level?
Wow, Tyler, that's a powerful take, and that's a powerful take. I do think that because the barrier to success, or the barrier has been reduced, because of AI. You can develop a marketing plan, you can develop your own strategy, and literally launch a business within a couple of days, develop an app in a couple of days. You don't have to study computer science. I do think that the higher education system will evolve. There is an opportunity to cut down 4-year degree to 2. I think that there are conversations ongoing, as well. If they don't do that, the attendance rates will just drop drastically. You don't need to spend 4 years. That's my personal opinion. And I think conversations will head towards that direction.
Definitely. I really appreciate that take. I would be remiss if we did not give you some time to discuss your book. I know you're very passionate about teaching people and getting, especially women interested in tech, cybersecurity, AI, whatnot. So we'll let you kind of do a unselfish plug here and tell us a bit about your book and your efforts there.
Thank you, Tyler, for saying that. I published my book in 2000. I think before COVID, I used to run a lot of workshops, seminars. I'll bring girls into the Accenture Innovation Hub. My focus really was on girls because, like I said, in the workforce, be on the project and there'll just be only me or me and someone else. So I was like, okay, I'm on this mission to let girls know that they can code too, and it's not just a boys' club. So I used to run all of those camps and seminars, workshops, hands-on training before COVID. And then when COVID hit, I was like, what am I going to do? How am I going to interact with all of these girls across the world? And then that's when the idea came to me to put all of that knowledge into my book. So in my book, Out of Africa and Into the Cloud, Girls Can Code Too, I share my personal journey, some of which I've shared on this podcast, how I will stay on the line to code and where I am now, and just to encourage and talk about different kinds of fear, how I overcame those fear, to encourage and to build the next generation of female coders.
That's great. Really appreciate that. Personally, I'm somebody who came from outside of the IT industry into tech, and it is sometimes difficult to find mentors or find those guiding lights because it's tons of information that you really don't know how to go. Do you want to go into routing and switching? You want to go into cybersecurity? Now, do you want to work with LLMs or AI? So finding people such as yourself that are willing to write those books, help mentor people, help hold those seminars, it's very, very beneficial, especially with the IT workforce growing as fast as it is. So I really appreciate your efforts there.
Thank you, Tyler.
So what career advice would you give someone who's just starting out and aspires to reach a position like yours?
So I have 2 daughters. I already told you that, senior and a junior. So both of them going into college in the next 2 years. And the advice I give to them is what I'm going to say here as well. Be curious, regardless of what. It's less of what you study in college and more about your attitude and your approach towards studying this. Curiosity. So whatever you're doing, AI is at the cutting edge. Make sure you're using AI in whatever space you find yourself. So even if it's marketing, healthcare, make sure that you're leveraging AI and be curious. What is the next AI tool? What is the next LLM in my specific sector? That's my advice.
Dr. Isi, do you think for somebody listening to this who has not experienced AI or has just heard about it as a buzzword, maybe they're thinking it's too late for them, that they can't jump in and learn it now? What do you have to say on that?
It's never too late. Never too late. Go to chatgpt.com. That is the beginning. I would say don't be afraid. You're not going to break it. You're not going to break it. Like, it's not going to break. I assure you, it's not going to break. So since you know it's not going to break, then go ahead and play with it. It's a couple of commands, write commands. Those are the prompts. Prompt it, get the feedback, and just let it be your tutor and your career coach and your guide. Use it and then find out how to leverage that to make you successful. And it's very simple. Okay, I know your ChatGPT. This is what I do on my day to day. How can I leverage AI to be more successful? It's as simple as that. And you take that and grow.
Great. Well, really appreciate all the information you've given us. This has been a great podcast. Before we wrap it up, I do want to ask if there's anything that we haven't touched on that you would like to discuss.
No, I was going to bring up my book. So thank you for digging up. I was like, boom, how did I figure that out? But thank you.
Bob, anything else from you?
Yeah. How can people find you, Dr. Isi?
Yes, that's a good one. So I'm very active on LinkedIn. Do not I accept every invitation that comes. Isi underscore Dr. underscore Isi underscore Idemudia. That is me on LinkedIn, and I'm quite active as well on Instagram. So you can find me at ECISYY.I on Instagram.
We'll make sure to link in the description as well. And also your book. We'll make sure to put that in there too, in case anyone wants to check it out.
Yes.